sure you have plenty to share. And if you could give us an idea of the current situation and what is your view, how long run is this going to be? Like, what does it look like on the ground?
Yeah, I think we have to go back to 2 weeks ago, almost to October 7th. What happened in the morning, why am I going back? Because I don't think the state of mind we had in the past that it's another skirmish between Israel and Hamas, and every time we hit them and there is a quiet for a few months or a year and we go back. What happened, the atrocities, is a game changer from the Israeli point of view. We understand that there is a collapse of our conceptual approach towards the Gaza, towards Hamas, ISIS, this organization. Because the level of atrocities, I mean, this, so far more than 7,000 rockets shot at Israel. That's how they started in the morning of the Jewish holiday. And they crossed the border under the bombing, killed everyone they saw. I mean, more than 1,000 in the first wave only, more than 1,000 terrorists. They physically took over more than about 30 communities. The total of deaths, which is around 1,400 people and almost 3,000 wounded, more than 200 kidnapped, many foreign citizens. Also, brutality of rape and beheading and the worst ISIS images that we know. There was a party where there were 3,000-4,000 youngsters where they killed 260 youngsters, just spraying them in the open. It was an open field, like a nature party that you have quite a lot in Israel. Young people go to have good time, to hear music. And then, I think it's game changer. And that's what brings us for today. It's not going to be like in the past because Israel cannot afford itself. It's worse than 9/11 because the whole concept, Israel cannot afford itself to continue living in these conditions that Hamas took over. What happened really in Gaza is that in 2005, Israel did what was called then the disengagement. We took out more than 10,000 Jews that were living in Gaza, and we dismantled more than 20 communities and came out. And then Palestinian Authority was in power. And a year and a half later, there were elections. Hamas won the elections. And the next step they did, they kicked out by force the Palestinian Authority people. By force, I mean they pushed them in big pictures that I still remember in my head of pushing their people off rooftops and stuff. Very cruel. Anyhow, since then they are the rulers of Gaza. And we were thinking, our concept collapsed, I think, is that we looked at Hamas not in the ISIS ideological eyes, but in the Israeli eyes, meaning that they are now the leaders, they have the interest of supplying reasonable welfare to their people. So by deterrence, military deterrence on the one hand, and helping them financially, and that's what happened in the last few years. Every day, tens of thousands of people from Gaza went to work in Israel. And this brought a lot of money and relative prosperity to Gaza. And we thought that if we do that, they will have this incentives not to attack us. And that was a huge mistake. So it brings us to today. How do you rectify the mistake? There are two elements that the Prime Minister and the Cabinet defined to the government as targets to the operation. One is to eliminate the capacity of Hamas to take any terror actions in the future, eliminating Hamas in a way. And the other one is doing every effort possible to bring back the kidnapped civilians. And this is now going to be, I think, a different kind of ground operation. It will be stronger, huge number of soldiers, and it will be probably longer. Because in the past, we just killed as many terrorists as we could, created some deterrence, and hoped for the best, that there will be longer time passing until the next time they attack us. This will not happen again. The whole Israel is a different Israel. Israel of October 7 is not Israel of October 6, I think, and we are going for a long ground operation, I'm afraid.
That brings us to the obvious next question is, what has surprised the world and surprised us and surprised everybody probably, and the Israeli establishment also, I'm sure, is Israel is seen as this impregnable security setup, okay, the best that the world can ever think of in terms of technology, in terms of security parameters. And that is a model which we in India want to emulate and put in place. So what happened that that got breached with almost like little boys playing with catapult coming and breaching some fortress. How did that happen?
It's a very good question.
Yeah.
It's a question that we are asking ourselves every day since it happened. What we agreed in Israel is that we start investigating ourselves what went wrong after the war is ending, because now it's not the right time in ways to start asking questions. All the professional levels already took responsibility. Chief of staff, the head of the internal security, the chief of the intelligence. Clearly, there was a series of problems. I tell you, the misconcept is the worst one, because intelligence, at the end of the day, you can have in intelligence clear-cut evidence for something. Someone is sitting in a room and telling you, "I heard that tomorrow morning at 6:30 they're coming to attack you, and they will attack here and here and here." This is usually intelligence is not like that. Usually intelligence is built out of pieces. The interpretation, the level of awareness you have, depends on how you see the situation. If you believe that the chances for this happening are big or lesser. And I think that the concept was that they don't want war, because I said before, life is much better now in Gaza. Life is better, there is deterrence, and we read all the signs in the optimistic way, in our way of thinking, and not in their way of thinking. We misunderstood how deep did this fundamentalistic ideology take over. I think that's the number one, and the element that if I want to, people don't know Gaza, don't understand. There are 2.2 million people living in a very narrow, 7-kilometer wide, more or less, 20 kilometers long. The Jewish communities that were attacked, some of them are on the border. So for them to pass, if they have a car and are able to cross this fence, whatever there is there, it's nothing. It's there. They open the fence. If they cross, they are in these communities. Some of them are farther away. They planned. They followed. They understood our weaknesses, the vulnerabilities of the system. They did it very well. What can we say? We have to prepare much better for next time, but I don't think that Hamas will be next time anytime soon. So it's going to be a very hard blow, hopefully a final blow to Hamas in a way. I don't know, we'll see after the operation, and it's costly. The operation is going to be costly for Israel in many, many ways, including probably in human life, unfortunately, but also for the Palestinians. It's a tragedy that is clear, but that's the reality where we live in our neighborhood.
Ambassador, there is also this thing that, if it is a land hall, and we have had the hospital attack on which there were kind of blame being shifted and all that. And then today there is a church thing also being so the civilian collateral, how on both sides actually, and how much do you think that can go up? Is there a possibility that there will be some kind of truce or a peace or a ceasefire of some sort, whereby the civilian population can be kind of on both sides?
So,
safeguarded?
The whole humanitarian question, of course, is a very troubling question. I will start by saying that there is no doubt about the hospital. There was an attempt to do disinformation about what happened in the hospital. But in the beginning, they immediately came out, and in 10 minutes, they already counted 471 bodies, and by an Israeli bombing. That was the version immediately. The problem of Israel that we are serious people, and we will not come out and say something we are not sure. So it took us, and it always does like that, it takes us 2-3 hours to find out, to make sure that it wasn't, we have so much activity in the region, not that it's not one of our planes, not misfired rocket bomb of ours or anything. But after 2-3 hours, we already had also evidence of radars, of cameras that were taking shots. So and even a phone conversation between two of the terrorists saying it was us. So at that level, so there is no doubt about it, by the way, because all the serious, the Americans came out and said, yeah, we have our own independent evidence, and the president said that, the Pentagon. So there is, because why am I stopping here on this? I will come to, because there is an attempt to draw equivalent between information and disinformation or false news and false fact, and that we have to stop, especially in serious people. So when when the other side is saying 471 killed after 10 minutes, it tells you, we didn't stop, we didn't finish counting our dead still after 2 weeks. We're still trying to work. So it was too accurate. And yesterday, the French news agency I saw came out and said that European intelligence sources say that probably the number is closer to 50 that died. But everyone agrees now that it was a misfired rocket. I mean, everyone serious, not those who do fake news, but the serious people, they say, yeah, it was a misfired rocket that, and this brings us to the point that was shot from behind the hospital. And why it brings us to the point? Because this is the humanitarian question. We are doing the utmost to decrease the suffering of the civilian population, meaning that before we go in, we announced, please evacuate, because we don't want, they are doing, from the past, they are using human shields. They are shooting from these places, and there is clear logic in what they do, their own logic. They know that they cannot compete really with the Israel Defense Forces in a real battle. So against civilians, okay, we saw the very unfortunate outcome. Rockets towards Israel, it's okay, but when we go in ground forces, they cannot. And the only way they can put pressure to minimize our ability to take action is to put international pressure on Israel. How do you do international? You create international pressure. You shout, the victim. I'm the victim here. The population is dying. They hope that we hit population because this will increase the pressure on Israel to shorten the action. So this is for years. It's not something new. Add to that, by the way, that now when we ask our population to move south because we want to work in a specific zone, they forbid them, put roadblocks. We have aerial photos, so it's not it's for a fact. We have tapes of people speaking about it, locals that they were prevented from going out, and even probably shooting people in order to create, to have the people afraid to leave. They need the human shields. So now they have two human shields. They have these human shields, the Palestinians, as they always use, and now they have, I don't know how many alive, but more than 200 hostages that were kidnapped. So, and they already threatened to use them. So it's a very complex situation. We don't want the people to, we are trying to minimize the suffering of the population. We renewed the water supply. We are ready to discuss humanitarian stops, but it will have also to include the humanitarian needs of the kidnapped. So it's not a situation where the whole population now will get something and we will not, something has to go there, but we want to minimize the pain. Unfortunately, Hamas doesn't care about the pain. So it's a tragedy for the people, because the people there, at the end of the day, some of them are sympathizers, not few even, quite a few, but many of them are bystanders. People who, at the end of the day, want to live their lives, normal lives. But they are caught between the rock and the hard place, and unfortunately, we have no alternative but to eliminate the ability of Hamas to attack us again. So it's a it's a tragedy for all. But I don't see any other method of taking care of Hamas and trying to get to the kidnapped. So.
Ambassador, how many hostages are there which Hamas has held, and what are your? How are you going to get them back? How do you see them coming back home? Are you in touch with them?
No, we are not in touch with them. There are more than 200 that we know. We don't know how many alive, how many dead, because one of the things, first of all, to take civilian hostages by definition is a war crime. It's crimes against humanity and a war crime. But from day one, 2 weeks ago, everything is a crime against humanity. There is nothing that is not. But anyhow, no one reached them. They don't give us the names. We are not sure even that all are alive. We are not sure that all are in the hands of Hamas, ISIS group. It can be also in other groups. That's the rumor. So it's a very complicated thing. We don't know about them. How we take them out, I don't know. I mean, ground operation is one. And again, it's very complex. It's not that there is a magic wand that you say and it happens. No, it will be very painful, but there is no alternative. So I don't see any other way but going in and trying to get them.
And Ambassador, the Iranian foreign minister had threatened that if this conflict doesn't come down, then the Hezbollah will join. So how would such threats impact the operations that Israelis plan to take?
I think that it's very important you mentioned Iran, because we didn't mention it so far. It was a surprise attack, so we are not 100% yet sure how it was planned and everything. We already have quite a good idea. So I guess with time we will know more information if Iran was involved directly with the planning. I can say that Iran is involved for sure, in the sense that for years Iran was training, arming, and financing Hamas. So they built Hamas over years. And Hamas are not one of their flesh, because Hamas are Sunnis, the Iranians are Shiites, of course, but it was a marriage of convenience here in the sense. So Iran was connected. It's not surprising that they came. Now, the Iranians are trying to disrupt a lot of good things that are happening in the last years in the Middle East, West Asia. And these things are also connected to India in a way. The Abraham Accords 3 years ago really created a new environment in the Middle East. UAE and Bahrain, and then Morocco joined, and now there are talks with Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And there are even economic projects that include India. One of them is the I2U2, and now the IMEC, which is the road, for the people will say, it's the road, the idea of creating a pathway, not road, but pathway, sea and land, trains and everything that will bring from India through Gulf, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel to the Mediterranean, to create connectivity and which can give prosperity. These are the ideas. At the end of the day, we want to make the lives of people in our region better. That's normal governments, that's what they do. But unfortunately, Iran has a different agenda. They wanted to disrupt this. I think this is one of the calculations that they pushed probably for this attack. But they wanted also to threaten Israel from the north with Hezbollah. Hezbollah is already a flesh of Iran. I mean, Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, said that he declared himself as a soldier in the Revolutionary Guard. And he sees himself, the Shiites, and it's a different story. Hezbollah controls Lebanon de facto. They are the rulers politically too. Also, they're stronger, their military is stronger than the Lebanese army, but also politically they rule the government. Now there is a mess, economic and political mess there. So things are complicated now also for Lebanon without it. And they are they started threatening Israel and shooting now, skirmishes on the border. Still, the potential is huge. If there is a blow-up, they have a lot of capacity, but we have greater capacity. And the loss for Lebanon, if there is a war there, would be tragic, really tragic. So we are anyhow trying to deter and prevent a second front. If we need, we know how to deal with two fronts. Unfortunately, again, there will be damage for Israel, but there will be, I don't want to say unrecoverable, but imaginable damage to Lebanon and Hezbollah. And this is one of the problems that we have, that we are trying to deflect it, and even the Americans understood damaging potential to the region, and they sent carrier, then another carrier, and another striker. So they have a big fleet in the Eastern Mediterranean, sending the message to Hezbollah and to Iran that they are not ready. And President Biden also said it from the US and in Israel when he was there, that they will not accept opening this front. Anyhow, we are hoping that Hezbollah gets the message. If they won't, it will be also very problematic there for them, for us.
That you have got support from the West, okay, US, Mrs. Sunak was also from France. So what exactly are you looking from India? India does have its little compulsions and all that. So if you can add back to your response.
So as I started saying, we were really moved by the wide support here. I got phone calls, public direct messages I am unable to answer because I get thousands. I try to answer as many as I can on all social media. They are also anti-Islam. Shouldn't be think that everyone, but the ratio is amazing. It's like 8-9 to 1 probably positive versus the 1 negative. It's heartwarming for us because it gives us the moral support that we need. We know, and I tell everyone, we don't need volunteers. And it's also a principle in Israel. We fight our own wars. If we would be perceived as needing the help of others to protect ourselves, it would be very dangerous for us. We have to make it clear to everyone in our region that we are able to protect ourselves by ourselves. So this is at the level of the people, which is really amazing. Then should have started probably with the Prime Minister, because in the afternoon of Saturday, 7th of October 7th, already in the afternoon, when the picture was not 100% clear. So I think at that time, probably 4 o'clock in the afternoon, around that, India time, we knew about less than 100 victims. We didn't understand the full magnitude. It was still in the making, the crisis. So there was still terrorists inside Israel. And he came out with a very strong denunciation of the actions and support for Israel. And then he spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu. A few days later, he had another tweet. So that the level of Prime Minister very, very clear. Messages of support, and we appreciate it very much. And also, I had ministers call me, and I did meetings also, high officials, military people, most important businessmen here, all found a way to send a message, to call, to send a WhatsApp, whatever, of support. So there is tremendous support here towards Israel. The fight is over legitimacy. That's why the hospital issue was so important, because they are trying to delegitimize, first of all, to turn the aggressor into the victim. And this is, we are not going to stop. We are not going to stop, because if we don't take the action we need to take, we are going to be in huge problem in the future in our ability to live in our region. This is a very tough region. The joke says that when you are invited to a dinner in the Middle East, just make sure that you are not part of the menu. So it's a tough neighborhood. It's a tough neighborhood. And, projection of power is the only thing that keeps your life quiet, and deterrence. And Israel has to regain its deterrence and its projection of power, and we will do that. First of all, we are much stronger than anyone else. It's a fact. The fact that we failed and we had the horrendous, really unspeakable atrocities and attack, that's also true. But, we can't stop. If we stop, it's a question of survivability of Israel, ability to survive long-term in the region. Now we are surviving, it's not just the issue, but they will start, if they see us as weak, they will harass us, not give us 1 day of quiet. And this is not doable for us. So what we need for Yeshi was outstanding, really. I also tweeted, he showed leadership and strength and self-assurance as a leadership, in his leadership, that was really amazing. Strong support. Many went to Israel, so we had the German Chancellor, or Biden, of course, spoke. Rishi Sunak and many other leaders around the world came to Israel to show their sympathy and solidarity with Israel. And this is very important. Again, it's important on the giving some encouragement to the Israeli people to understand that we are not alone in this story. And secondly, also giving the legitimacy that at the time it would be needed in order to achieve the goals that were set by the cabinet.
I just want to ask that in the past there has been a peace talk and an arrangement. Do you see that happening in
Anytime soon.
soon? Yeah.
That I asked him on the
Sorry.
ceasefire. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I will say, first of all, even if people speak about the two-state solution, this is not in the cards now because the maximum we can hope for is three-state solution. Because Gaza is an independent state; it's not part of the Palestinian Authority. And it's very funny every time I hear the Palestinian representative here speaking in the name of Gaza. What name of Gaza? You cannot go into. They cannot enter into Gaza. They will not let them, Hamas, and if they enter, probably they will not exit alive. So, Palestinian Authority has nothing, zilch, any influence over Gaza. So we can speak of this two-state solution in the past was in Gaza, in Judea and Samaria, the Palestinian Authority, where they are today, then Israel, and Gaza is a third state. So all these narratives that were done in the past are, for the time being, are not relevant. Maybe things will change. Maybe after we do the operation, we can reinstate some other leadership or moderate and someone who can go back to the path of coexistence and peace and everything. So, but we are not there yet. This is the time for action to eliminate the risk. Afterwards, you cannot do any discussion and negotiations when you feel that you are threatened, because then it will not work. So we will eliminate the risk, and then we can start again speaking. Our biggest problem also that the legitimacy of the Palestinian Authority in Judea and Samaria is very much limited also. So it's not that they have their full legitimacy. Also, many years since they had last elections, and this is an issue. If they have the power and the legitimacy to do that. So everything is challenging, but again, after we eliminate Hamas, it might be easier also for the Palestinian Authority to do things, because they are also threatening in Judea and Samaria, they are threatening the Palestinian Authority. So it's one thing that is very important to remember, and we spoke about the regional approach. These jihadists, in different names, they have different names in different countries, ISIS, Daesh, Hamas, they are the enemies of the pragmatic countries in the Middle East. They are the enemies of Egypt. If you remember in Sinai, they are the enemies of Saudi Arabia. They have the Houthis. They call Houthis also supported by Iran, but they have the Houthis. And they are the enemies of Jordan. They are the enemies of the Gulf countries, and these are the destabilizers. And many of them, not all of them, are supported by Iran or instigated by Iran or in different ways. So our ability now to diffuse one of these elements is very important. If we fail, by the way, it's very dangerous for them, not because Hamas tomorrow will go and topple a regime, but others, copycats, they will give energy, like we can take out energy from the radicals. If we fail, or this success that they had on October 7th fuels them and gives them the energy to continue and do it in other places. So for the betterment of the region, we better succeed, and we are going to succeed. So I hope that we are doing it with international support and not at least the West, because I understand that some countries have public opinion issues and will not openly support us. We understand that, by the way. It's not, we just don't disturb it. We tell these countries, don't disturb us. You can't help us, okay, but don't. It's not very easy, because we all understand that we are living in a world where the geostrategics are very complicated. And it's a zero-sum game between the superpowers. If one superpower is here, so the other superpowers will be on the other side, just as a matter of principle, not related to the specific topic we discussed. It goes. That's why Security Council is paralyzed, and the international bodies are paralyzed. Every place you need. You saw that in G20 how hard it was, and one of them didn't come, so the others could. To sit in one table, they are unable even to sit at one table. They cannot agree on. One will say it's morning, the other one say no, it's afternoon. So I think it's zero-sum game. And this is a very complicated world. So there are some who will go against Israel, not because they think we are wrong, but because they think that we are, for example, we are supported by the Americans. We understand, that's the world, but please give us the time to get rid of the threat to the region, to the stability. We will do that, but give us the legitimacy and don't try to pressure us like some try to.
And related to this question, that there is some demands in, there were some gatherings and protests of Jewish people in DC and New York demanding a peace and, need for a ceasefire. So how are you dealing with that? Are you kind of, or is it that now eliminating or defanging Hamas is so much important for you strategically that you can't listen to these
these organizations
voices?
are fringe organizations that are there for years. They are always these organizations. It's hard to say, but they are Jews that are anti-Zionist, like they are Indians, I would guess, living in Canada that you would probably define as not pro-Indians. Okay, I don't want to give names, but so we have the same issue. Not all Jews, vast majority of the Jews, vast majority of the Jews support Israel, and strongly because they understand the need for even put aside the religious, the spiritual, they need the security for the Holocaust not to reoccur. They need to have a Jewish state. This is the belief that Jews have from the Second World War, one of the things that we understood. And there is always a minority. I will tell you that in Human Rights Council, there is a rapporteur to the Middle East. For years, they are looking to take a Jew. When there was, and they had Peter Falk and others who were, and when there was the Goldstone inquiry that was imposed on Israel, they took Judge Goldstone from South Africa, a Jew. Why? Because they don't want us to. There is a lot of anti-Semitism involved in the criticism of Israel. But if you put a Jew, how can you accuse a Jew of being anti-Semitic? So, but there are these Jews who are not pro-Israel, who are anti-Israel. We know that it doesn't. I mean, it's we also have a few Arabs who are bold enough to come and speak against Hamas action.
Right.
We have, so there are bold people in the Middle East that are ready to speak against Hamas, but not that many. And I'm sure that all the rest of the Muslims will call them traitors. That's the nature of life. But we are resolved. There is no pressure to stop us because, again, it's survivability for us. It's not a question of luxury or revenge. This is not a question here. It's a question of making sure that we are able to continue living in peace and quiet in our very, very tiny land. Israel goes, and people don't know that, but Israel goes into India geographically and from the population point of view, 140 to 150 times. So we are less than 10 million people, and also in population. So.
Last question. So on China, China has suggested that that there be a peace negotiation in consonance with Egypt, and also they've spoken for Palestine. So what do you have to say on the commentary that China has been making on whatever has happened in Israel?
I said before, I think that in general, I spoke about countries who look at it from a point of view of struggle between the superpowers, rather than looking at the substance of things and the risk of it. And this is part of the very unfortunate situation that our world is in. So we cannot deal with issues as they are. We cannot deal with atrocities as they are. And very sad, because it's not good for humanity. I mean, we had, it depends on the generation where you grew. I grew up in these good 20 years after the collapse of the Soviet Union, where the world was relatively united. The Security Council, I was serving in the UN in 1997. Still, the UN was able to take decisions in Security Council on great issues of importance to the world and lead the world in a way. Today we are paralyzed. Again, we had 20 years more or less that we had it, that we had a normal time, and then we are back to now it's a polar world. Before it was two polar, now we are multipolar, and it's not bringing any good to anyone. And that's why, by the way, one of the ideas of the minilaterals that Dr. Jay is speaking about, I think it's many people are going into smaller, like-minded organizations because we understand that the big organizations are paralyzed. There is nothing to do there. So let's find the smaller, like I2U2, India, Israel, US, UAE, 4 countries, leaderships are trying to better the lives of the population. Let's do projects together. We have joint interests. This is in general, I think, the common understanding that international community is dead. And it's not good for humankind. I mean, for Israel also, but we will get over this bad period. I don't know if the world will, but we will.